Oh, this brings back memories. Happy memories. Hello guys, welcome back to Car Obsession and welcome to another episode of Cheap Thrills, the series in which I cover fun cars for under £5,000. The car featured this time may seem a bit familiar. That is because this used to be my car. This is a 2006 SEAT Ibiza FR which I owned for about 4 to 5 years and now belongs to my dad. If you aren't familiar with the car, let me take you around. The FR, which stands for Formula Racing, is a halfway house between a standard Ibiza and the fire-breathing Cupra. Standard features include sportier styling, lowered ride height, silver door mirror caps, double exhaust, sport seats, 17-inch alloys, remote central locking, climate control, FM radio with CD player, electric windows and a traction control. It was available in either a 3-door or a 5-door as shown here. This particular example is finished in glacier blue, which is a rare colour for the FR. Under the bonnet I have a 1.8 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine which offers 150 horsepower along with 220 Newton meters of torque. This power is fed to the front wheels via a 5-speed manual gearbox. You may think those numbers seem a little bit tame by today's standards, and the performance figures would back that up, because SEAT stated it would take 8.4 seconds to hit 62 miles per hour and the top speed is 134 miles per hour. However, don't let those numbers fool you. A few years ago I took this to Santapod and I actually hit 60 miles per hour in 7.1 seconds, so this car is quicker than you may think. Well, as you would expect, this all feels rather familiar and reminiscent. So of course, for this car to qualify for this series, you must be able to get it for under £5,000, and you can, although there is a bit of a caveat with that. There's not many of these about. In fact, I looked on Auto Trader yesterday and have a guess at how many of these were on the market. Thought about it? If you guessed one, you would be dead right. Yes, there's only one of these on the used car market, well, on Auto Trader at the moment. Also, I got to turn on the fans for the windscreen because I've steamed up all of a sudden, which is a bit weird. So these cars are pretty rare. It is also worth noting you can have these as a 1.9 litre diesel, although come on, you want the petrol one surely. Now, as I said earlier, this car is a little bit deceiving in regard to its power. On paper it doesn't look particularly quick, and many would argue this is a warm hatch, not a hot hatch. I would argue this is a hot hatch, bearing in mind the time it was released, which was, well, towards kind of mid-noughties. I would say for this kind of power output, I would class this as a hot hatch, but that's another debate for another time. You could get a more spicier version of the Ibiza though, which was of course the Ibiza Cupra. I did actually look at a Cupra, but that's another story for another time. I'm sure I've probably bored you with that story before. There is a little bit of lag in this car, but once you get it on boost, the power may surprise you. It really is a potent little motor, and with a remap, I reckon you'd have a proper pocket rocket. The Cupra I mentioned a few moments ago, that had 180 horsepower, but give this a map and you'd get similar kind of power. So if you can't quite afford a Cupra, get an FR and get a stage 1. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. The 5-speed manual gearbox, the change is nice enough, it is positive enough, but I personally, I would like the throws to be a little bit shorter. So if this were still in my possession, I would definitely be thinking about putting a short shifter in here, because the change is adequate, but it needs to be a bit more snappy in my opinion. The seating position is a bit high in my opinion. You do feel like you're sat on the car as opposed to in it a little bit. And yes, my driver's seat is set to its lowest. I would like to be sat a little bit lower, makes it feel a bit more sportier, but hey, you can't have it all. The pedal placement is pretty good. You can heel and toe if you've got quite wide trainers. If you're wearing Converse or something slimmer, you may struggle a bit. I do like the weight of the pedals, they feel meaty, although you may find the clutch is a bit heavy, particularly in start-stop traffic. I had a few occasions where I found it to be a little bit tiring, particularly as I've got a little bit of a chronic knee injury on my left leg. So yes, clutch work in stop-start traffic isn't ideal. The brakes perform well. The feedback through the brake pedal is pretty decent. The ride may be a bugbear though. Yes, I know this is a warm/hot hatch, and you have to expect a firmer, sportier ride, but I would argue in the Ibiza FR it is a little bit crashy, and it can be uncomfortable. This road isn't particularly bad, but even so, the chassis, I can feel it jiggling about underneath me. Hit a pothole in this car and you will know about it, believe me. You'll hear a massive thud and your spine will pretty much break in half. Right, let's get away from this traffic because I want to have... Oh, actually, okay, let's go down here. Right, wunderbar. Yeah, this car is punchy. And I remember the very first time I drove this, I found the turbo very addictive, because back then I hadn't driven many cars. This was my third car, and the world of turbo cars was still quite new to me. So jumping into this, giving it a quick test drive around Winter Racecourse, well, not around the racecourse, around the roads around the racecourse, obviously. That would be a little bit interesting, wouldn't it? And I remember having this massive grin upon my face, like I do now. Oh, blimey. Because, yeah, once you get that turbo on song, this thing, it flies. I definitely think that 8.4 seconds to 62 miles per hour is pessimistic, because in the real world, on tarmac, this car, it definitely feels quicker. And it's flying down this B road. If I go any faster, I might take off. The handling is pretty good, although the steering isn't the greatest in my opinion. Yes, it does get heavier as you build up speed, but it hasn't got the greatest of feedbacks. I would like it to be heavier. And when you're doing town driving, it feels ludicrously light. Now that is a good thing, because you want your steering to be lighter when you're just going about town, but in a car like this, it is too light. In one of my previous videos with this car, I said you can pretty much steer it with your pinky finger, and look, I'm doing it now. I wouldn't advise that, by the way. This car, it is potent, but as I've touched upon, it isn't perfect. However, I would argue that as a project car, this is a very worthy candidate. And yes, I have seen a few modified examples, but I think this is a car that, for whatever reason, it has been overlooked. And that is a pity, because I think it looks fantastic. If I'm not mistaken, this was designed by Walter De Silva, the same bloke who designed the Mark II Land Cupra, which is a car I currently own. Oh, a nice little rev match there. Yeah, and I think this car is proportioned really well, and the styling is bang on. It's sporty, but not in your face. It's quite understated. Some of you may think that's a bad thing. Some of you may think it's a good thing. For me, I liked it. Yes, there were points where I owned the car where I thought it looked a bit boring, but this is the kind of car, I wouldn't go so far to call it a sleeper, but you could catch people out. I've taken this on a few track days. I remember a bloke came up to me, he was in a Saab convertible, of all cars, believe it or not, to take out on track, and he basically said that he was surprised by the power and by how quick I was. It isn't the lightest. This is, from memory, I think it is 1,145 kilograms, so it isn't exactly a featherweight, but it doesn't feel heavy. It still feels nimble through the corners. It's just a shame that the steering isn't better. That 1.8 is fantastic. And at this point, as I come towards the end of the video, I should really be talking about reliability. What's this Polo doing? They're doing about 15 miles per hour. They must be lost. In regard to reliability, in the time I've had the car, which, as I said earlier, was about 4 to 5 years, very little went wrong with it. I had to replace an ignition coil because I had a misfire. I had to replace the coolant temperature sensor twice. That seems to be a bit of an ongoing issue. But apart from that, I can't think of anything else. I think there was a breather hose of some description that I had to replace, because that was also causing some form of misfire. I can't remember the ins and outs of that. That was a long time ago. But this car has been pretty bulletproof. In the time my dad has owned it, again, not much has gone wrong. He had the ABS warning lights come on a few weeks ago, but that turned out to be a fuse that had blown, so a very simple fix. This door latch has gone. That's really common on the Volkswagen Automotive Group vehicle. So in regard to things to look out for, there's nothing I can think of that's obvious, because this car's been in the family for, oh blimey, I think I bought this October 2014, and where are we now? We're almost October 2021, so it's 7 years. Yeah, this car's been in the family almost 7 years, and touch wood, it's been a really dependable workhorse. It's got through MOTs with no issues. Oh, this brings back memories, happy memories. At this point, some of you may be asking, well, Aaron, if you liked the car that much, why did you get rid of it? Well, the reason was, I had this for quite some time, I simply wanted something new. There were a few things that I was falling out of love with, such as the ride and the steering. And this is a fun little car. And maybe if I had have kept it, I would have modified it. But I just wanted to move on to the next level, as it were. A bigger hot hatch, something with more power. I think as a starter hot hatch or warm hatch, I think this is a great place to start. It's got enough power to be enjoyable, but not enough in which you can really get yourself into trouble. Yes, if you are a young driver, insurance may be an issue, because this is a 1.8 litre turbocharged petrol, so it isn't a small engine. But given the fact that these cars aren't really worth that much anymore, that may work in your favour. I do hope those of you that have been following this Cheap Thrills series have enjoyed it. There are quite a few cars that I want to feature for this series, So I will put a list of them up on the screen now. If you own one or you know someone that owns one, please do get in touch. Ideally, I want the cars to be as standard as possible, but certain cars, it'd be a case of I'll take whatever I can get. For example, I'm after a standard Mark 6 Ford Fiesta ST, which, let's face it, that's like chasing a unicorn. There are some about, I mean, standard Fiesta STs, not unicorns, but yeah, they are hard to find. There we are, a drive down memory lane. That was a thoroughly enjoyable one. It's actually made me miss this car. I don't regret getting rid of it, purely because the car is still in my family. I still get to see it every now and then. So it's kind of best of both worlds. I have sold the car, but I've still got access to it if I want or need it. So yeah. Well, I do hope you have enjoyed this video, guys. If so, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. If you are subscribed, don't forget to click the bell icon so you get notified every time I make a video. But until the next time, guys, be sure to keep up the car obsession.